Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Couple of Nukes. As always, I'm your host, Mr. Whiskey, and I am excited for today's episode because addiction is one of the biggest topics we cover on this show, from alcoholism to drug addiction, even men and women who are suffering from porn addiction. So we cover a lot of different types of addiction on the show. We've even referenced how people with addictive personalities can form addictions about anything, including hoarding. We've seen those shows where people are buried alive, So there's some, and there's also a show. Shout out to Strange Addictions, where people just get addicted to some crazy stuff like drinking pine sol. But today we're going to be talking about how can we combat these addictions, how can we heal from them and recover. And today we're focusing on a way we have never covered before on the show. We've done rehab, we've done therapy, we've done families and setting boundaries, we've done fitness, we've done a lot. But today is something very unique, very different. It is using lasers. And I know everyone listening, you're like, lasers? What do you mean? And we're going to get into that today. We are here with Meridee LaserQuit, and we're going to get into how lasers can help us quit our addiction. So, Meredith, I'm so excited to be here with you. And would you please introduce yourself for us?
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. So I am the founder of a company called LaserQuit, and we help people free themselves from addiction using cold laser therapy, which is a combination of low-level radiation and red light therapy. And it kind of was like, it's one of those things that people don't know a lot about yet, that not many people have even heard of. And so I'm kind of leading an industry here in teaching people about what I do. So basically, I guess I'll give you my story first as to how I kind of got into this and then how it's evolved into what it has.
For sure.
I was a smoker. I started when I was 11 years old and I was desperate to quit. I did manage when I was like 20 years old to quit because I was pregnant. And I mean, that's a good enough reason for most women to be like,
Right.
I don't need to smoke anymore. Um, so I was able to quit smoking, but then my ex-husband and I got a divorce, one of the most stressful times of my life. And I guess my biggest FU to him was to pick up a cigarette. And
Mm,
in so many ways, it was also the biggest FU to myself.
right.
So I ended up posting on my Facebook, and someone responded, "Hey, you should go try cold laser therapy." And her friend commented underneath it, "How can you say for her to try anything when you still smoke?" And then she commented on it, "Hey, well, I smoke because I chose to smoke." And so then I said, "I'm going to PM you." So I messaged her and we had a whole conversation about it. And she was like, "It really does work. I just wasn't ready to quit." So I was like, "I'm more than ready." And I drove 3 hours from my home to be able to go have a treatment and basically had the treatment. And when I left, the lady said, "Just don't pick up that next cigarette." And I was like, "It's easier said than done. Like, what did you
Right.
even do to me? Like, am I going to feel anything?" Like, I literally left there and didn't feel much different. And then on my 3 hour drive home, I the person that was in the car with me was like, "Are you going to quit smoking at some point?" And I was like, "Wait, what do you mean?" And he said, "Like, you keep rolling down your window and then patting the center console." He's like, "You're telling me you haven't thought about smoking this entire time?" And I was like, "Not once." And we were like 2 hours into our drive home. And now, if you're an addict of any kind, you know that one of the hardest parts of walking away from your addiction is the constant nagging that happens in your brain afterwards when you're trying to get away from it.
Right.
And so for me, just having that struggle of, like I couldn't stop thinking about it, which made it that much more challenging to walk away from. That was probably the biggest thing for me to be able to get away from my addiction and it not be this constant nagging thing in my brain. And so I was able to have this treatment and just kind of forget. And I was successful for 5 years. I didn't touch a cigarette. And then there was everybody in my backyard and they were all smoking. My best friend, who had never smoked a cigarette in her life, was smoking. And I walked over to her and was like, "Give me that." And I took one puff. Now, the puff tasted like crap, felt like crap. Nothing about it did I enjoy. It burnt my throat. It made me cough. Like there was nothing I enjoyed about it at all. And yet the next day, I was doing what all addicts
Mm,
do and I was smoking again. So I realized smoking is just like every other addiction. It's just that we're not impacted by it in the same ways. Like it's not ruining my life. even though it is, its impacts are so much smaller that I don't notice it until I'm dying from cancer. Or I don't notice it because it's only $20 per day. Or, like we have all these excuses for it.
Yeah,
Whereas,
yeah.
alcohol or drugs are impacting our behaviors, they're impacting our
Mm-hmm.
relationships, our finances.
Yeah.
Like it's a bigger impact overall. And so I started smoking again, and then I was really desperate to quit. So I just called the lady and went down to quit smoking again, had the treatment, and she was in forced retirement. And so I asked her if I could buy the training and the lasers from her, and we set something up. And then I went down with the money and I gave it to her, and she spent an hour with me. And I was like, this is it. I'm walking away with this company, and this is it. This 1 hour worth of training. So I ended up spending a lot of time doing some research, and I ended up working with a laser specialist who was actually more focused on curing Lyme disease using cold laser therapy than he was with anything else. And so I spent about $5,000 and quite a bit of time working with him, to the point where he just started sending his smokers to me. I would go to his office, treat his smokers, take the money, and he stayed focused on what his passion was. And doing it, I just kind of found that, like, it's overall this really incredible program using acupuncture based spots and your body's energies. The laser is able to create the outcome faster without any pain and in a deeper way. So I don't have needles going in my skin. I didn't get left sitting there for an hour with these needles in my skin, but I was able to quit a few years into, like I had spent the first 5 years really experimenting on people to see what would be the best result for me.
Mm.
So I would ask them, of course, with their permission, and I would document everything. And I would treat smokers in with different sequences, different timing, different lasers, all these
Right.
different things to see where I could get the best outcome. I ended up with about 95% success rate overall. And when I say overall, I mean over a 1 year period of time. After that, I kind of stopped following up with them so consistently, because at 1 year, your brain should be fully recovered from almost any addiction. So in heavier addictions, whether it's drugs, alcohol, opiates, like you name it, those things, when we take those, especially over the longer term use, our brain chemistry is completely changed, and it takes up to 14 months for your brain to recover and start making the
Yeah.
chemicals the way that they were supposed to. That being said, they will never recover back to normal because we have some physiological damage done as well.
Of course.
The treatments that I offer actually help your brain recover way faster. So, your first treatment will really have this big impact on you and make you feel significantly better, remove or reduce the desire and the craving, all of the things. The second treatment makes it so that you don't go back. Then we do follow-up treatments to teach your brain how to keep this as a new normal rather than letting it try to recover itself slowly. So essentially, I'm going in and giving your body instruction to do all the things that it needs to do and will do, but I'm doing that at a higher pace and a faster speed than what would normally be your brain and your natural body recovering. So we
Mm.
have incredible success. And after about 5 years of working with smokers, I had a friend whose daughter was addicted to heroin, and she had asked me, I need you to do something with her. And I was like, I don't know if this works for that. And because there's not a lot of studies done on any of the things that I'm doing. And so I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. So the last 10 years, we've really spent focused on addictions overall.
Mm.
And if we use the treatments the way that we have them programmed, they use 4 addictions treatments, and then we put them into a maintenance program for at least a year. We're seeing people quit and stay quit, whatever they're using. Now, that can be gambling, that can be porn, that can be food, that can be smoking, alcohol, various different drugs, even getting people off of methadone and Suboxone, which is the supplementary to heroin or fentanyl or
Right.
any of those things. So we're really able to help people fully recover instead of a temporary fix where they go back multiple times. More often than not, with our treatments, when people come see us, they don't go back.
So I took all of that in, but there was a key word you said that I've been thinking about, which was the red light therapy.
Yes.
Now, a couple weeks ago, we had John Graham Hopper on my show, and he created Lumaflex, which is a portable, wearable, waterproof red light band that you use for muscle injury recovery and basically how it worked. And it was an interesting conversation because we were talking about how red light is new. There's so many people talking about it now. There's all these different companies trying different things, and he explained it as kind of an artificial sun. Getting your
Mhm.
cells like basically what they need from sunlight. And I think it's so interesting that humanity is on this cycle of going backward to go forward, right? So we used
Yes.
to always be outside in the sun. Now we all
Yes.
live inside as dungeon dwellers and computer, people. And now we're trying to bring the sun inside. So when you're talking about lasers, I mean, uh, and red light therapy, are they two different things? Are the lasers red light
So
based?
it's actually like a combination. So
Okay.
the crazy thing is red light therapy has been around for many years. I'm going to say probably 50 years. It's just that it seems to be like this new trend of people
Right,
realizing that
right.
that it works. And I agree with you. We're trying to, we've been told all of this really interesting information about how, the sun is so bad for you. But the problem is actually that if we don't get enough of the sun, that's what's bad for you.
Yeah.
And yes, the sun can cause skin cancer, but if you properly protect your skin, then you're not necessarily going to end up with skin cancer. Also, if you have certain traits or certain genes, you're going to end up with skin cancer. So it just is kind of like the sun is responsible for so many things, but it's so
Yeah.
important to our mental well-being as well as our physical well-being,
I miss Jimmy
which is why
Buffett.
we're
I'll say
now,
that much.
yeah, which is why we're now trying to bring it inside, right? Stay
Yeah.
out of the sun, but let me bring it to you anyways. Well, the sun is incredibly important, but the red light therapy is also incredibly important because it does bring so many of the things that are so important to our bodies. And so ours is using that same red light therapy, but we have combined it in a laser. So the reason it's called a laser is because it's combined with this low level radiation.
Okay.
So it's not the laser pointer that you see people like making their cat chase or any of those things. And I'm not sure if you've noticed, but even those have become slightly illegal because the light can be seen from airplanes,
Mm.
even if it's just the little handheld one. So they're becoming slightly more aware of these simple, red lights.
Yeah. People used to shoot them up into the sky all the time at Wildwood, New Jersey. I would see it, and I know parents were always saying, "Don't point at people's eyes and stuff." But that's exactly what I was picturing when you say laser. I'm thinking like a pinpoint beam. And then when you said red light therapy, I was like, so is this just a condensed, blast? Especially when you said acupuncture, I'm just picturing someone sitting there. They've got like 20 lasers, going into them. So can you kind of explain how this works to us with some imagery, as well as for anyone out there who heard you say, you said low level, but they heard the word radiation was all they heard. They just heard
Yes.
radiation. Oh no, that's cancer. I'm going to turn green or blue or whatever it may be. So you
Yeah.
can kind of break down for those of us who aren't necessarily scientists, what does that mean, radiation in this context?
So low level radiation. So radiation has been proven to stimulate your cells, whether it's growth of the cells, energy movement within your cells, various things like that. But it's really actually good in low levels for your body. In higher levels, that's why they use it for cancer and stuff like that, is because it can destroy cells.
Right.
Now, what we do is we're using low level radiation, which is using a low safe level of radiation. Again, like you said, don't point it in someone's eye because someone could go blind. Now, you combine red light therapy with low level radiation, and now you can actually blind someone,
Mm.
like truly blind them, burn the back of their cornea. If you were to shine even just a quick swipe up your face could leave a temporary mark on your cornea. Long-term use will actually destroy your cornea. So it is something we have to be really cautious with. It's something that we have to be careful when we're using, but it has a lot of many benefits. Now, the laser that we're using, and I always forget to bring it, but imagine a large pen that's say 12 to 14 inches long and about an inch in diameter, and it is a handheld device. There are various other ones out there. The ones that we use specifically are a handheld device, and it is quite small. And then we're actually using them on acupressure or acupuncture points. And what those points are is actually where we leak energy or where energy can be put into our systems. So it's actually not this It's not a bad thing. It's not this like, oh my God, she's poisoning me or she's going to kill me. None of those things. This is actually incredible. And what we do is we're releasing all of these different levels of endorphins in your brain. So, for example, you'll notice that if you drink or do heroin or do cocaine or methamphetamine or whatever it is that you're doing, each one has a different outcome. You don't feel the same drinking as you do doing heroin. You don't feel the same doing
Right.
cocaine as you do. Even for that, lots of people will drink and then do cocaine to sober up.
Mm.
What they're doing is releasing different levels of different endorphins. And for example, alcohol releases high levels of serotonin for about 20 minutes and then it crashes, which is why you'll see people get drinks about every 30 minutes because as it crashes, it makes them feel sad. And then to drink, it
Mm.
uplifts them again. If you do
Yeah.
cocaine, it releases huge amounts of dopamine, which is how come the next day you feel so awful because your dopamine has been over released and it needs time to recover. So what we're doing is actually going in and we're going to release massive amounts of all of the endorphins, including the bliss molecule, including serotonin, including dopamine, and other endorphins in your brain. We release them all at the same time. So you essentially feel very similar to you feel beforehand or normal, but you'll feel sort of euphoric. You'll feel like you are balanced, that you are in this state of kind of a blissful state. And it's because we're releasing all of the endorphins that you need in on a daily basis, but at a more normal level. So a way I explain this to people is if you imagine like a baseline in a graph, the
Right.
baseline is where a normal person's endorphins would sit, going up and down tiny little increments throughout the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Exercise releases endorphins, making you feel pretty good. That's kind of a higher spike. But if you did cocaine, your spike would be quite high, which
Right.
means that the crash is quite low. So you are so far below your normal level. That's where people will say, like the day after, that's where addiction actually starts, is the day after. People don't want to feel like that anymore. They
Mm.
used cocaine the night before to avoid feeling the crappy feelings they were feeling in the first place. But now they feel 10 times worse than that because there's no endorphins. So then they use and it brings them up again. Now, even throughout a night or over months, you always chase that first high and you'll never catch that first high again. And
Mm.
so what we do is without giving you the high, we're able to release the endorphins to simulate a high without the sensation in your body. So it's
Okay.
actually a really interesting an interesting idea that we're doing, but we're using your body to do all of the things that we're doing so that it's all natural. We're not, causing your body any harm or damage. Whereas when we're taking a drug or drinking, you're actually putting carcinogens in your body and messing up the cell at the mitochondria. So you are actually doing so much damage to get this tiny little rush that you're getting. And yet with ours, you're not causing any damage at all because we're giving you your own body's energies to create the outcome.
So I'm tracking, I'm understanding, but for this artificial high, so to speak, that you're creating, now my concern is, are people going to get addicted to that, saying, "Hey, I want to come back every day, get this laser therapy high," or how long does that high, that artificial high, last? Because you're
So
releasing
again,
that.
can't say artificial because it's all natural. So
Right,
it's not
right. I get
artificial,
what you're
it's
saying.
holistic. But that being said, what actually happens is you have your first treatment. When we do the heavier addictions treatments over the week, your body tries, especially the longer term you've been using for, your body tries to revert back to what it was. So we retreat in a week, and that really reiterates to your brain that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. So we treat you, and then a week later, we treat you again. Now, with our smokers, we treat them and then typically treat them 8 weeks later. But with
Okay.
our addictions, we'll treat and then we treat again a week later. And then after their second treatment, we typically will treat every 6 to 8 weeks. It really just depends on the client. It depends on how they're feeling. So someone could come in every 3 or 4 weeks, which is pretty rare. It's very typical to see a client come in between 4 and 6 weeks and between 6 and 8 weeks. So what happens is your endorphins are releasing and they climb for the next 8 weeks. So you just feel better and better and better over the next 8 weeks.
Okay.
And then what happens is if you don't get retreated at 8 weeks, your endorphins start to crash and they'll crash for 8 weeks. And by week 16 or month 4, you'll start to feel like you did before you saw us in the first place, which is how come we retreat at least the 4 times. And what we're doing in that retreating is teaching your brain to either make more of the endorphins that we've released or to keep that as your new normal. So we're teaching your brain how to make this your new baseline.
Okay. Okay. And so it can really depend on the person and how their body responds to it because everyone's body is a little different.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
that's pretty interesting. So when people go in to get this treatment, I know you mentioned the acupuncture points and those being kind of energy portals, so to speak.
Yeah.
So how many different points are you getting lasered at, so to speak? Does it really depend on the person and the addiction, or is it like the same kind of treatment for everyone in that sense?
So it is the same points. But what most of my specialists do is have trained my people to really pay attention to how the client's body is reacting.
Okay.
So it really is, we have to watch you to see if we're seeing the relaxation we're looking for. So we have a baseline treatment, but then if your body's not reacting the way we want it to, we will then treat you slightly deeper. It really depends on the person, but we are treating, say, 15 to 20 points on your body, typically on your head, face, ears, and hands. So we have found the points that are really concentrated in these areas that are going to help to release what we're looking for. And that's our baseline treatment. Now, again, if someone is not responding the way that we're hoping for them to respond, they're not relaxing the way that we're hoping for them to, there's certain things that people have to be looking for. And if those things are not happening, then my staff will treat deeper, is what I call it, for a
Okay.
longer period of time to really get the outcome that we're looking for.
Right, but the best part for everyone who's thinking they need to try this or know someone who needs to try this, it's non-invasive and
Yes.
non-harmful.
Yes.
It's just light, and touching you. And is this a visible form of light? Like, can
It
you
is a
actually see it?
visible form of light. So if I had a laser and I pointed it to my hand, you could see it's a very
Okay.
concentrated pointed light, which is there's a lot of different lasers that
Right.
are quite a bit bigger. The circles, the space that it holds is bigger. I like mine very concentrated. It's very pointed, very specific. And it's unbelievable the result that people have there. I definitely, the reason I'm doing these podcast appearances is because I just want to get the world to start changing the way we deal with addiction. And the people that I'm typically working with are, you know, high-end CEOs who run or own these big companies that are under high stress that just need a release at the end of
Mm.
the day. It turns from just a release, on a weekend to a release at the end of every single day. And then the end of every single day turns into every day multiple times throughout the day. And they're like functioning addicts. They are operating these high level
Right.
businesses, they're high level executives, they're all these things, and they're suffering severely through addiction, and no one even knows that it's happening. So if I can help these people, now I've seen COVID has really exacerbated this and made it so that it is another level. I'm seeing, stay-at-home moms whose babies were a year old, that they, had a glass of wine a week with, or a bottle of wine a week with a glass here
Yeah.
or there, that are now drinking, a glass of bottle or a bottle of wine a day
Hmm.
or more. And it's not the people you're thinking of. It's not the people on the street, though we can help them as well.
Right.
I'm talking about functioning addicts who are functioning through their lives. And the sad part about it is that our children learn by example, not by words,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So I can tell my children, don't do what I'm doing, but the more I'm doing it, the more my children are going to do exactly what I do. So if I lead by example and by action, my kids are going to do just that. So neither of my kids are big drinkers. I've never been a big drinker. Um, I have led by example as much as possible with my kids, and that has actually really changed the game for my kids as well. So I really want to be able to help people get themselves to the place where, how many of us have said we have all this trauma from our parents and we would never want to do it to our own kids, and yet we
Yeah.
do it every single day to our kids.
Yep.
These treatments are the cool part about these treatments is now someone comes in for, say, an addictions treatment and they smoke. One of the problems that I see in rehab centers is that they're like, let's get rid of the big addiction and we'll leave you with the small ones. So they can continue smoking marijuana, they can continue smoking cigarettes. they'll allow them to go straight to sugar, which most addicts will go straight to sugar when they're done their addiction. And the reason for that, especially the first year, is because of that high in their brain. Your brain responds better to sugar, chocolate and sugar are the two best responding things in your brain, even better than cocaine, better than alcohol, better than all of the things. So they are allowed to keep all these other addictions. Whereas if you come see me or use LaserQuit treatments, you're not going to have any of those. There's not going to be any leftovers, because if you have an addictions treatment, we treat your smoking, we treat your sugar addiction, we give you a stress and anxiety treatment, a PTSD treatment, a mild pain treatment, which really helps with like detox and joint pain and things like that. So they're getting this overall incredible treatment that isn't just treating this one addiction. It's treating so many of the issues that come with stopping any addiction, the withdrawal symptoms, the pain that comes with those withdrawal symptoms, the detox, all of it.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you said earlier because I know a few weeks ago we had Ms. Gina, who was a bartender and then a nun and now an author. And when she was told she was an alcoholic, she goes, Me? She goes, she had always pictured, she said, an alcoholic is a guy sitting under a bridge with a brown paper bag, hiding a bottle of alcohol. And she realized how hidden it can be. We had, I actually did an episode specifically on women and alcoholism because typically it's men who are associated with alcohol. So when you talked about, moms who are stressed out, whether it's their kids or what it may be drinking, we had Jen Ally on the show. She was hiding in her closet at home to hide her drinking. She was drinking in the closet and,
Yeah.
she was a mom. She went to work and everything. And there are so many, like you said, high functioning level alcoholics and addicts out there. And so I appreciate what you said. Now, as the son of a father who has been addicted, who has been an alcoholic and a drug user for decades, my big question for you is there a point of too far gone, or is this something that can be done at any point in the journey of addiction, whether a few weeks or a few years?
I don't think that there's a point where it's too far gone. I do, however, believe that it has a lot to do with the mindset that comes with it. So if somebody
Mm,
doesn't want to stop, I can't help them.
yeah,
If they want to stop and they have any kind of desire and are willing to be invested in themselves, then I believe we can help them. There may be a bigger struggle for them. There may be more treatments required for certain ones. But there has to be that desire and that willingness to invest in themselves. That's the biggest thing. I love what you were saying about the nun, because I actually just did a whole post on I would rather be sober thinking that I was an alcoholic than living my entire life as an alcoholic trying to get sober or
right.
pretending that sobriety doesn't even matter, because that's exactly it. We have this misconception of what alcoholism is or what drug abuse is, or, we've normalized it. So now somebody who I go to a party and someone offers me a drink and I say, no, thank you. Oh, did you have a problem? No, I just don't drink. Why is it not normal that I don't drink? Or it's always, okay, so do you smoke pot then? Like it's always one or the other. And how about,
Yeah,
no, I'm just sober. I have zero vices right now. I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't smoke marijuana. I don't do drugs. I don't drink alcohol. Why isn't that okay?
I
And
agree
that's
with
the
you.
thing that I'm finding now. Like for me, I find if you drink every weekend for both of the days, you should really be questioning whether you're an alcoholic or not. And when the way that I have my clients, because some people call me and be like, well, I don't think I'm an alcoholic. And I'm like, what does it feel like when I say you should stop? Because the minute that you go, oh, well, why would I want to do that? Or how do I do that? Or that would be too challenging. Now you need to really look at why you're using it, because there's a
Right.
deeper reason. And we just cover all our shit up with drinking or drugs or something that makes us not feel.
I completely agree there because I'll drink socially on occasion, but I don't smoke or anything. And I've had that same response if for some reason I don't want to drink. There's this outcastment, this negative stigma, and part of it is, mainstream media and social media is because it's a product, it's an industry. So it's always branded that it's not a party until everyone's high, or no one's having a good time until everyone's drinking. And now, especially with the newer generations, and this has gone on throughout all generations, but drinking just to be able to talk to people because of social anxiety. But I think it's worse now than ever because I know a lot of people my age, or drinking just to talk to people. And I don't know if it's
Yep.
because they grew up on social media. There's not a lot of in-person interactions. I'm not sure what it is, but I see it more and more, and with the younger and younger generations, it becoming more prevalent. So I totally agree. It's always like, well, why don't you drink? And there shouldn't have to be a why. If you're saying no, you're saying no.
Yep.
So I
Yep.
completely agree with you. And like you said, a lot of people are covering it up, and it made me think of my time in the service. I still have friends who are in the military now, still serving, and they drink so much, and it's so normalized in the military. The levels and the numbers of drinks that they're having, they think is normal because every military member is doing it. Some of them are going home and chugging a whole bottle of whatever it may be, or having 8 to 10 drinks a night during the workday.
Yep.
And they're like, this is normal. Every sailor or soldier does it, and I'm like, that doesn't
Yep.
mean it's good. It doesn't mean it's not an issue. I'm seeing
Yep.
people drink huge amounts, uh, or even day drinking. I know because a lot of military members work overnight or they work a lot of hours, that on their day off, it's like that whole day is just drinking day. So
Yep.
it's not good at all. And yeah, it's
And
just
it's the best way for them to cover up all the trauma and things that they see, the feelings that they have.
yeah,
Like we already have our childhood trauma that we have to deal with, but somebody who's in that industry is going to be suffering a lot more than,
for sure.
just our childhood trauma. Now they have like real life, every single day trauma that they're dealing with. And instead of actually dealing with those things, it's easier to cover those things up than it is to sit and feel those things.
And most military members have more childhood trauma than most people. It's like, they get pushed in that direction. But you had mentioned, wanting to help people, especially with so many people hiding their issues. And I just want to mention your website here. Obviously, it has the programs, the different types of addictions, the locations, and the pricing. But you also have a bunch of blogs here going over some of the different effects of addiction and all of that. So, I mean, what kind of other information can we find on there that would be really helpful, even if we don't want
So
to
we
get the
also
treatment, if
I
we
also
just want to.
have a Facebook page. If you look up LaserQuit Therapies headquarters, I actually have two Facebook pages. And then we also have our or our Instagram, which is laserquit.therapy. You can also look me up personally, which is Sober Coach Mare. Um, and we are working on actually a really interesting thing. So there's going to be tons of information in our website. You're going to find out a lot about us. Following our social medias, I post a little more controversial content. Um, I post a lot of like make you think questions and ideas and stuff like that. Also, we are looking to partner with people. So we're looking to expand, and we are licensing people in all across the United States, across Canada, eventually across the world. And what we're doing is we're partnering with people for them to offer laser quit services themselves. So if they're interested in something like that, if any of your listeners are interested, check out our website, send an email from the website. It will come directly to me. And my plan is to stay heavily involved in this. Like right now, we currently have 9 locations, but I have every intention of staying very heavily involved in this, even at
Right.
hundreds and hundreds of locations or thousands of locations, because there's a certain level I want to maintain in this business. And I want to keep it. The people that I'm bringing on my team are people who care about helping other people. It's not about the money. There's not this ridiculous amount of profit in this business. It is about the fact that we can actually change the world and that I have a bigger purpose, and my purpose is to do just that. So if anyone's interested in that, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I am happy to answer questions, to have a meeting and discuss and see if we're a good fit.
Yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, all that information will be in the description below. I highly encourage y'all to check it out. I think because there are so many of us who, I think almost you could find any person nowadays and they know someone who's addicted to something, whether that's a family
Yeah.
member or a friend. And so I highly encourage y'all to share this episode with them because I think so many of us have tried so many different ways and conversations with our addicted loved ones. And, it's always, I don't want to go to AA and hear those stories, or rehab isn't for me. This is
Yes,
something different.
it
But
is.
like rehab, like AA, like any other program, Meredith, you said it best. You have to want it. I've
You
had
do.
guests talk about how rehab doesn't work if you don't want to get better. You have to want to quit. So I completely agree with you. And I think that can be the most challenging part of
Yeah,
recovery is getting the mindset to actually be able to recover. But if and when you have that mindset, I highly encourage LaserQuit. I mean, I think this is great. I think it's especially good for, those of us, especially men who maybe we don't want to talk about this stuff. We don't want to go to AA and share our feelings or go to rehab and do the 12 steps. I think this is great alternative that people should really look into. And I really appreciate what you're doing. Like I said, I come from a family of addiction, and we'll see if I can. I'm gonna try to get my dad to do this, but like I said, he's one of those people where he wants to keep drinking.
yeah,
So I think it's great though for people to have this in the back of their mind and to really, think about it as an alternative option for maybe if your addicted loved ones aren't ready now, there's always hope that they will be one day.
yeah.
And I think as time moves forward, this laser technology is only going to be better and more effective and more known. So I really look forward to
Agreed.
the future of your company and where it goes in life. And I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing all of this.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Sailing through the ocean blue, nuclear reactors my crew, guiding the ship, the stars as our guide, through the waves we ride, jokes and laughter fill the air. On this voyage we have to share, working together, side by side, as one family we will abide. In the heart of the ship we reside, nuclear operators with pride, powering the vessel with every stride. Our mission, a source of great pride.